This was kind of a weird show in that a good chunk of the wrestling was geared toward traditional enhancement matches with not much storyline progression, and what storyline progression we did get was mainly focused on two main angles. And I don't really have a lot to say about the wrestling, actually. I mean, it was a good show for wrestling, don't get me wrong, but some of the matches were just kind of there and felt a little inconsequential. Nothing really wrong with it, but at the same time I was kind of struggling to get invested. Example, Matt Morgan squashes Doug Williams. Joey Ryan was very entertaining outside the ring, but Morgan wins the match pretty quickly, and that's it. Nothing else happens. Chavo and Hernandez never showed up, and then Morgan just forgets about Williams. He says he's going to plow through the roster one by one to get to the world title, but he hasn't really followed up on this. He just beats Williams in a match 100% clean, and then just lets him go. Now, if he tried to injure Doug Williams post-match, maybe tried to chokeslam him through the announce table, which then brought out Dos Stereotypicos to make the save, that would have hyped the tag title match at the pay-per-view, as well as put over Morgan's new vicious streak, but this didn't do any of that. Just Morgan wins the match, and that's the end of it. Example number 2, Mickie James versus Gail Kim. Mickie has the Knockouts title shot at Final Resolution, so she beats Gail in a basic enhancement match. Tara never comes out to do anything to hype the match with Mickie. There's no storyline build up there. Mickie just pins Gail and heads to the back. It was a good match, but really that's all it was, just a match. With these matches, it almost seemed like the writers forgot these wrestlers were involved in feuds. And that's really strange because on the same show we got some good examples of using a match to build a feud or a storyline. Bobby Roode cuts a great promo about how Jeff Hardy almost lost to one of those worthless gut check contestants last week and how pathetic that was. This brings out Christian York, and he cuts an admittedly not as good promo challenging Roode to a match. They have a match, Roode wins, he tries to injure York with a chair, Hardy shows up and runs him off. So you put York over for having a competitive match with Roode, you put heat on Roode for trying to injure him, and you advance the feud and hype his title match with Jeff Hardy at Final Resolution. So they accomplished a lot in this segment. Wasn't groundbreaking, but it did what it needed to do. It got heat on all the right people in the right way, which those other two matches kind of failed to do. By the way, am I the only one who finds it really ironic that Austin Aries' world title reign took a backseat to the Aces and Eights stuff? But since his feud for the world title ended, Aries has been in the main event angles while Hardy and the world title have been de-pushed almost to mid-card status? I just think that's really funny. Also, we had a tag team match with AJ Styles and James Storm versus Bad Influence, which is what they're calling Daniels and Kaz now. And here it wasn't about advancing a story so much as advancing character development. It's a very good match as you would expect. Not shockingly, the faces win because, well, God forbid Daniels and Kaz ever actually get over on AJ for real. And even though the faces won, AJ is still upset because it was James Storm that beat them and not him, and he's not happy about his performance. And he feels this way despite the fact that they won the match. So they're playing up how AJ has become really frustrated and disillusioned after the crap year he's had, and it's throwing him off his game. Now that is interesting. It's not over the top. It's been kept very subtle. They're just nudging the AJ Styles character in a new direction, a different direction, and I think it's been pretty compelling so far. And in order for this to keep progressing, Daniels absolutely must win that match at Final Resolution. Because no matter how bad things have gotten for AJ over the years, at any given time, one thing he's always had was his ability to pretty consistently beat Daniels, especially in high-profile matches. If you take that away from him too, then you can do the storyline of what the hell is AJ gonna do now that everything has been stripped away from him? And that, I think, is a story worth telling. Again, just putting characters into new situations. It makes them more interesting to watch. It's kind of similar to what I wish WWE had done with John Cena after he lost to The Rock at WrestleMania this year, but I think we all knew that wasn't going to happen. And that brings me to the two main storylines they were pushing this week. And this was also kind of strange because each one is clearly going somewhere, but without knowing the hows and the whys and where they're going exactly, then I'm kind of struggling with the reason the writers are devoting so much time to them. First, you've got the Wes Briscoe gut check angle. And clearly not a typical gut check, which we've been led to believe are unscripted, at least most of the time. There's something going on here with Briscoe ingratiating himself to Kurt Angle, Angle getting him the tryout, Al Snow mysteriously disappearing, D'Lo replacing Al Snow, D'Lo then casting the deciding vote on Wes Briscoe. it makes me want to go back and re-watch certain things to see how Al Snow reacted to Briscoe's tryout in the first place, because if a certain faction thought Al Snow was going to vote no on Wes Briscoe, maybe they discreetly took him out of the equation. So it's looking an awful lot like they're setting up Wes Briscoe as a member of the Aces and Eights, as well as them using Kurt Angle as a means to an end here. And generally, I think it's been refreshingly subtle and nuanced so far. It's been set up quite well. It's certainly better executed than it would have been if WWE had tried this. But if that's where this is all headed, then I really hope there's more to it than just that, because they've been teasing this for so long that if Briscoe is revealed to be in the Aces and Eights, it's not going to be a surprise. People have been calling this for months. It's been obvious enough to the point where I think that a much better swerve would be if someone on the show put all this together, accused Briscoe of being in the Aces and Eights, causing Angle to turn against him, only for it to turn out that Briscoe was innocent all along, and this whole thing was just an elaborate misdirection ploy to hide the guy who's really in the group. Kind of like the James Storm thing last summer, but done right this time. Now that would be surprising, as long as the real guy in the group was not Garrett Bischoff. Screw that.
This alleged superstar is an unworthy opponent.
Was innocent all along, and this whole thing was just an elaborate misdirection ploy to hide the guy who's really in the group. Kind of like the James Storm thing last summer, but done right this time.
Sorry.
Now that would be surprising. As
I
long
didn't
as
get a
the
lot
real
of
guy
sleep
in the
last
group
night.
was not Garrett Bischoff.
Anyway, where was I?
Screw that. What's that now? Devon wants the TV title back? TNA, please don't do this. Devon's TV title reign lasted for months and went absolutely fucking nowhere. Samoa Joe has been a really good champion, and his run with the belt has been terrific. He's actually made it seem like the viable upper mid-card championship that it should be. I see no reason to take the belt off Joe right now, especially if it's just going to go back on a guy that I didn't care about holding it last time. However, if this is about putting the TV title on Devon so Magnus can get revenge on the Aces and Eights and win the belt when he comes back, maybe on the UK tour, then I would accept this. But if that's not the plan, then for God's sake, just keep the belt on Joe, please. And also, I don't know if this is going to happen, but just in case you were thinking about this, TNA writers, I have no desire, none whatsoever, to see ODB going after the Aces and Eights. If that happens, it damn well better be just a way to bring Leva Bates back to take ODB out. But if it's not, then don't you even fucking think about it.
Destination? Horror.
Then we had the main angle of the evening. The one that had the opening segment, the main event segment, and numerous segments in between devoted to it. Why, I'm not exactly sure, but needless to say, Hogan is none too happy about Bully Ray showing Brooke his British fist. Although you wouldn't know it from the entrance Hogan made, just saying. So he demands an explanation. Bully Ray and Brooke are both consenting adults, and she's only in charge of the knockouts, so she's not his boss or anything. So there really shouldn't be a problem here, but that doesn't stop Hogan from crying havoc. And at first glance, it seems like a carbon copy of that ridiculous bullshit AJ Cena storyline on Raw, but with a little bit of self-awareness, they managed to avoid that whole pitfall. Hogan has taken the overprotective dad thing to a really creepy level considering Brooke is obviously well into her 20s, and he really has no argument when it comes to business, so basically what he's doing is wasting TV time on his own personal hang-ups when he should be doing his job as the GM. And that would have been enough to kill this whole thing for me, but then almost immediately Austin Aries shows up on the video screen and completely calls him on this. And Aries had some awesome zingers about Brooke this week. I couldn't believe they let him say this stuff. It was priceless. And this led us directly into the selection process of the X Division title challenger for the night because it's Championship Thursday. First of all, Kenny King was back.
Yes! 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 Yes!
But it was like they were dangling a carrot in front of me, just barely out of reach. Because just as quickly as Kenny King shows up, he's gone again. Hogan, in his infinite wisdom, eliminates Kenny King first.
Oh, what a bunch of bull.
Really? Really? You keep Kenny King off TV for months, only to bring him back on this show just so you can pull the dead bro walk-in card? Really?
Really?
They seriously need to rethink this Championship Thursday concept. I like the general idea, but the elimination process never makes any sense. Hogan cuts Kenny King for laughing at the joke that Austin Aries made about Brooke, but Aries, who made the joke, ends up getting the title shot. What? I can buy that Kenny King might not get the title shot, but getting cut first? Are you kidding me? Kid Cash should have been cut first, since I don't think he's won a single match this year, and he's about as far from deserving a title shot as the Robbies are right now. But no, Hogan cuts Kenny King, who has more star quality than 90% of the roster, just for laughing at a joke that had nothing to do with the X Division. See, this is why throughout the show people were telling Hogan that he was confusing personal issues with business. Because he is.
You're nothing but a selfish prick!
Alright, I don't know how they rationalized it exactly, but Austin Aries gets the title shot. And if it wasn't going to be Kenny King, then I'm glad this happened. So the main event is the first ever match between Austin Aries and Bob Van Dam. And I thought they'd want to make a much bigger deal out of this than they did, but that didn't happen. But I'm okay with them doing this on free TV at least, just because ratings are down lately and they need to pull out all the stops, so I understand that. Austin Aries was so fucking entertaining in this match, giving Van Dam no respect at all, using his own moves against him, cutting an impromptu promo on him during the match, mocking him with the thumbs gimmick. T-G-M-T-E-L. And he didn't win, but he definitely had the upper hand when Bully Ray finally came out all pissed off that Aries was talking shit about his woman. So they protected Aries here, against Van Dam no less, who we all know Hogan is in love with, which is a great indicator of how strongly they're behind Aries. But they had to go and ruin it. Aries tries to get away from Bully, but Hogan appears on the ramp and blocks his escape. And all of a sudden, Aries is just trapped? Are you serious? Aries, you're the greatest man that ever lived. Hogan's 60 years old and basically crippled. As long as you don't run directly into his fist like the Aces and Eights did at Bound for Glory, then I'm pretty sure this guy is not going to be a physical threat to you. Just walk up to him and push him over. He's had so many back surgeries his body would probably shatter like a stale potato chip.
I will not participate in this charade this evening.
So this has very quickly become the main angle of the show right now. But the underlying theme here, beyond all the love affair stuff, which I'm thinking is just a smokescreen, seems to be that Bully Ray is pissed off that Hogan doesn't trust him. They were pushing that pretty hard. And that interests me more than anything else, because there are a lot of different ways that could go. It might tie back into the Aces and Eights, who knows? But that issue of trust looks like the root of this storyline, which is certainly a better way to go than playing up some kind of lame-ass sex scandal. AJ Cena. I had mixed feelings about this episode. The pay-per-view hype could have been better, and the two main storylines are clearly building up to something, but what? I don't know. I think it would really help if we had a clearer picture of where this is all going so we could get excited about it, but we just don't have that yet. And most of that goes back to the Aces and Eights thing just taking forever to get to the point. But on the positive side, I thought Austin Aries was a superstar this week. Fucking brilliant! Being entertaining and sleazy on the mic at the same time, taking Van Dam to the limit in the main event, seamlessly integrating comedy into the match. This is why Austin Aries is getting so much attention right now, and Jeff Hardy is in the mid-card even though he's the world champion. And any show that gives the greatest man that ever lived this much attention is going to be worth your time. That's all for now. See you next week. Hey, it's me again. Listen, he let something slip tonight. He's made a critical error. Grab the Wes Briscoe thread and start pulling. If I'm right, revealing Briscoe could be what finally gets this ball rolling.